What's going on, guys? Good morning. Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well, having a good Monday. How are we all feeling? Yeah, I know. More Manchester United news to get into as we head into a big week, a worrying week, I don't even know what to think of it week. I woke up this morning and it's meant to be one of the most sort of happiest times of the year, isn't it? It's meant to be one of the most sort of getting into the holiday period. You know, you're finishing up work for the year, you're finishing up school for the year, you're finishing up uni, college for the year, whatever it may be. You're looking forward to spending time with your family, with your loved ones, with your nearest and dearest, and there's a load of football to be played. It's the busiest part of the year when it comes certainly to the English football calendar, and yeah, this week is maybe quite literally the nightmare before Christmas, isn't it? Because we've got Bayern Munich tomorrow, Champions League, 8 p.m. kickoff, GMT, Old Trafford. Not only is it really win or bust, it's win and hope or bust, because even if we win, other things have got to go our way. And then after that, and the inevitable fallout that comes, we've then got Liverpool, Anfield on Sunday as well, and oh, it's going to be a long week and an interesting week nevertheless. But we've got some stuff to get into this morning. We're going to talk about Gary Neville and his thoughts, and I want to do something a little bit different this morning. I wanted to do not much of an opinion piece, but I thought his comments were quite interesting, and I know that obviously the issue and the discussion surrounding Erik ten Hag, his future at the moment, is very polarizing. Why wouldn't it be? Certainly some people have seen enough to know what they think. Some people say back the manager. Some people say it's a bigger problem. It's a much wider problem. It's the players. It's the executives. It's the ownership. It's this, that, and the other. So Gary Neville's given his opinion, and I wanted to sort of give my thoughts on what he said and get your thoughts on what he said as well, and really open it up to you guys this morning as well. Get a bit of an open forum. Also a bit of an update when it comes to Casemiro too. He's now back in, well, not full Manchester United training, but he's on the grass, so we'll talk about that. And just open it up too, of course. Flex, as you can see, I'm flexless this morning, and without Flex, that's because he's on the road to Carrington. Yes, he will be in the press conference today with Erik ten Hag and a player that I don't think's yet been revealed ahead of tomorrow's Champions League clash against Bayern Munich. And there's going to be a million different questions to certainly ask the Manchester United manager, isn't there? But as always, as Flex said in his reflection yesterday, and he said in the full view yesterday, be sure to check them both out. If you've got any questions that you think would be prudent for Erik ten Hag or the Manchester United player, whoever it may be, let us know. If either in the live chat this morning, we can get some of the questions up and discuss whether they'd be good questions or not, certainly. Or if you're watching after the fact, you can let us know in the comment section below. That press conference is scheduled for midday, 12 o'clock. So I'll be live about... I'm just trying to think of what would usually happen. Probably about one. Maybe just past one, because hopefully we'll have clips and all that kind of stuff, right? So there you go. Let's have a look in the chat, see what everyone's saying this morning. Javid says, good morning, Owen. Good morning to you. I'm telling you, 100% 2 wins incoming. Marcel is always right. Well, that last part, Marcel has been proven to be right on plenty of occasions. There have been a couple of things he's been slightly off bit with. He said we weren't going to lose at home this season. We're just coming off the back of a 3-0 defeat against Bournemouth at Old Trafford at the weekend. In addition to defeats against the likes of Manchester City, well, I suppose there's Brighton, I suppose there's Crystal Palace as well. So that sort of, that 100% win record at Old Trafford this season wasn't totally right. I mean, he did say we would sign Harry Kane. Harry Kane's at Old Trafford tomorrow, but he's playing for Bayern Munich, which is probably a bit of a problem in those plans. Marcel's been proven to be right though on numerous occasions. It's not all wrong. This season he has had a couple of stinkers. I will say as well. What else are people saying in the chat at the moment? Danny Luciano says, let's get a quick 100 likes and get Owen his raise. Wow. I'm not petitioning, by the way, Flex, if you're watching. But I do agree with Danny Luciano with the first part. Let's get to 100 likes straight away if we haven't already. We've already got nearly 500 people watching, so there's more than enough of you. Well, if you do it early on, you don't have to do it later on. It's like the washing up or your chores. Not that it should be a chore to click the like button. Do it, it's just part of your routine. It's like brushing your teeth. Wake up, brush your teeth, click the like button. easy. All Elite says, I missed a comment there. All Elite says, battle down the hatches. This week is going to be tough. Yes, indeed, it's going to be tough as well. And Luyo says, a broken clock is right. Clock is right twice a day. Not broken, just a clock. Marcel is definitely not broken, certainly. There you go. And a super chat already. From Aditya says, hi Owen, hello. This is the first time I have doubted Ten Hag. Why isn't he able to set his team up to avoid transitions through the centre of the pitch? Well, that is something that I really hope is asked in the press conference today, because I've seen a lot of people talking about that. Maybe not so much like the media in question, but more so the fans. I've noticed a lot have said that, because that was something I kind of pushed back a little bit on. I think it was Kenny last night on The Full View said Ten Hag learns from his mistakes. And I was sort of thinking, well, I don't know if he necessarily does. And I think that's one criticism, certainly, that I think is a valid one, because throughout all of the ups and downs this season, and there have probably been more downs than ups, the midfield's been a constant issue. I mean, you go back to the first game of the season, right, against Wolves, that the game should have lost, and we got quite fortunate with Varane scored and the last-minute penalty decision and all that kind of stuff. That day, the defence was porous, wasn't it? Huge gaps in there that Wolves were just running through, and it's been like that for every game this season. It was like it against Bournemouth at the weekend, right? Defensive transitions, we just get absolutely ripped apart. So I'd love to know what Ten Hag's response would be to just why is that the case? Forget any steering him in any directions in the questions as well. Forget saying, is it because of this? Is it because of that? Is it because of injuries, absences, tiredness, system? I would like just to know why. Why? Why is that the case? Why do we look so vulnerable on the counter-attack? Why are there so many big gaps in midfield? And it'd be interesting to see what he would say. I mean, he was kind of asked something similar in a previous press conference about the sort of man-to-man structure in midfield, and he just outwardly denied. He went, we don't do man-to-man, we do zonal. It might look like man-to-man, but that's because of mistakes. So it'd be interesting to see if he would say, well, actually, the midfield has so many gaps because the players are making mistakes or anything like that. So that would be interesting, certainly, to see. But keep your questions coming with all that kind of stuff as well. And JD's been a member for 16 months. 1-6. Look at that. Appreciate all that support. That's tremendous. And says, in Erik Ten Hag, I trust get shot at the players before Erik Ten Hag. How many times should change the manager to still have the same core of players? Dead players. Wow. Perfect segue, and appreciate the support, JD, to what Gary Neville was saying yesterday. So obviously he was doing his Sky Sports commentary duties, and he insisted that Erik Ten Hag should not be sacked, and instead took aim, easy for me to say, at the owners of the club, the Glazer family, for the situation that Manchester United find themselves in on the pitch. Now, of course, after this loss at the weekend and with the week ahead, some critics have suggested that Erik Ten Hag could be on borrowed time as Manchester United manager. Even at the end of this week, he might not go, but sort of saying it feels like it's coming. Sort of we're at the beginning of the death spiral, as it were. But Gary Neville has pointed out performances and results saying they must improve. He was adamant that a change of manager is not the solution. Speaking to Sky Sports yesterday, Neville said, quote, there is no way they should change him this season. This idea of sacking him is absolute nonsense, and I would not be in favour of that. I know people say you can't blame the Glazers for what is happening on the pitch, but yeah, you can. Yeah, you can, because 10 years of failure and miserable recruitment comes down to the fact they have not got a sporting director or proper head of recruitment in place. That is why this happens. Ultimately, managers look above them and think they haven't got anyone above them, so they might as well just do it themselves. This is all down to the leadership. If it happened once, fair enough. If it happened twice, you would ask the question, but this is 5 times. 5 times in 10 years. They have spent £1 billion on the limit of FFP, £700 million in debt, £300 million going to other clubs. The bank overdraft is at £250 to £300 million. They are £1.2 billion under. Jim Ratcliffe has got to come in and sort this out, and you wonder how he is going to come in and do it. That's the concern I have. What we need is a change of structure at the top that will hopefully happen in the next few weeks. Hopefully that will change the way in which the sporting project is looked at, because you can't come in and leave everything as is. Then maybe with some leadership and structure around the club, maybe Manchester United can compete with some of the other clubs who recruit and do their business a lot better. Now, what are your thoughts on all of that? What are your thoughts on everything that he is saying there? Because I do think there is merit to some of the things, certainly, that Gary Neville has said. And this is kind of the everlasting conversation, isn't it, when it comes to results, player performances, managerial performances? Because you get into the debate of, okay, that is valid. There is no way that what Gary Neville is saying there isn't true. Everyone knows the structure at Manchester United is completely, I don't even know the word, shit. There you go. That's good at 9:14 in the morning. But Manchester United has reduced my vocabulary down to nothing at this point. Everyone knows the structure's awful. Everyone knows the owners are awful. Everyone knows the finances are terrible, despite the fact we make so much money. To find ourselves in that amount of debt and that amount of FFP scrutiny and trouble is just beyond a joke, isn't it? And everyone knows that a lot of the people in executive positions at Manchester United, whether it's the CEO, the football directors, the technical directors, the whole recruitment department, whatever it may be, are not fit for purpose. They're not football people. They don't care about footballing results. They don't care about winning anything. They care about getting the highest sponsorship deal and setting commercial records. They care about that, but they don't care about winning things. So when you've got this sort of systemic culture of not caring about really whatever happens on the pitch, why should you be surprised when what happens on the pitch is rubbish, right? And that's a valid argument. That is a valid argument to be said. Now, the people that will push back on that, I think it's important to look at both sides of the argument here, because there'll be people that go, totally agree with that. I totally understand that, totally agree with that, but that still isn't a good enough excuse for not getting the best out of the players, or that's not a good enough excuse for, making strange decisions, or that's not a good enough excuse for, despite all of that stuff going on, it's not as if you haven't had money to spend. It's not as if you haven't been able to spend on players, because you have been able to spend on players, and you've spent money on players, and you've brought your players in that you wanted. A lot of them certainly were people that were at the direction of yourself and maybe not the club, and why are you falling out with certain players, and blah, 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 blah. And I do think there's weight in both of those arguments. I do. But I do think, and this is why I've always said that I don't think we should get rid of the manager, because I think it just papers over the cracks again. I think it's like the Titanic sinking and sticking your finger in a hole in, the hole in the boat, in the ship, and going, that'll fix it. And you go, yeah, but we're still sinking. Water's still coming on board significantly. People are jumping into lifeboats. Like, what are we doing here? Yeah, but I've put my finger over this, so it's sorted. And see, water's coming in much slower, a bit slower now. Well, yeah, at that point, but there's still all of these different places, right? And unless the conclusion I've come to, certainly, and it might be, and I'm sure it'll be different to some of you as well. And again, this is fine. This is why we're fans. This is why we debate, and this is why it's opinion. But the conclusion I've come to, certainly, is that sacking Erik ten Hag, would there be an immediate bounce? Maybe. But unless there is systemic, radical change, radical overhaul in everything, from the foundations all the way up to the top, we will find ourselves in the same situation in 12 to 18 months' time, because we always do. As Gary Neville said, 5 managers, 10 years, it's always a couple of years. A couple of years in, the players decide they don't like the manager anymore. A couple of years in, the signings go to shit. A couple of years in, we don't do the recruitment the way we should do it. A couple of years in, we have to blow up, literally, like in the cartoons, boom, blow it all up and go, we'll start again. We'll do another rebuild. Let's start again. And then we don't focus on the long term. We're always focusing on this 2 to 3 year cycle over and over and over and over and over again. And we have the same conversations. That's why it's so draining, isn't it? I think there's this amount of sort of lethargy looking at the takeover process, the acquisition process, strategic alternatives, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to call that. There's this element of lethargy towards it because it's taken so long. And I think there's an element of that with all of this, with this group of players again, with the should we or shouldn't we sack the manager again? Because like the takeover process, it's a conversation that we've been having for years, and then it goes away, and we think we've sorted it, and then it comes back again, and we go, oh, what do we have to do again? It's the same. It is. I wish I had my soundboard hooked up, but I don't this morning. But it's Groundhog Day, and it will continue to be Groundhog Day unless we make real significant changes. So, is the sack of the manager going to make a difference? Not unless there is proper change. Now, someone brought this up. I think it was a members chat last night. And I thought it was a good one during the full view. And it was essentially, if Ineos came in and Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sir Dave Brailsford and all these different people came in and said, look, we're getting a new CEO, Jean-Claude Blanc, or as KG would say, Jean-Claude Blanc, which sounds a bit like a sort of weird game show, doesn't it? Jean-Claude Blanc. Don't know what it would consist of. Just write it down. And we're going to have these sporting directors come in. Reports suggest it might not just be one. It could be several, right? Paul Mitchell and Paolo Maldini and someone else. It could be several. They're going to come in. And the recruitment department, they're all rubbish. We're getting rid of all of them. We're bringing those new people in. And also, some of these players, we've decided, not good enough. Contracts are out of control. They're going as well. If they tied into that and said, look, we just feel like with all of these changes we're making, we're going to get rid of the manager, I still would feel quite down about that, because just by the situation of going, here we go, like another manager came in, had a promising trajectory, and Manchester United chewed him up, spat him out. Louis van Gaal somewhere would be sipping his red wine, doing all that kind of stuff, going, I told him, don't go there. It will ruin you. And that would be sad if that happened, because it's a graveyard for players and for managers. But if they came in and they said, that's what we're doing, I could somewhat get behind that, because I would say just this whole thing needs to be scrapped and starting over again. And if the manager gets swept up in that, then I guess that's collateral damage in what would hope to be positive change and real, actual progressive change. But at the moment, I've just got no faith in Manchester United at all. I just really, really don't. I've got no faith in anything, and I'm truly that sort of skeptical person now of I'll believe it all when I see it. I mean, it hasn't even been announced yet, so how, and they're saying before Christmas, then it'll become before New Year, then it'll become before the end of the season. I mean, again, like the manager and the players, we've done this story over and over again, haven't we? So I'll believe it when I see it. But even then, there would be a lot of permutations on that. I mentioned it last night. Who would the replacement be? Is it going to... I mean, those reports of Graham Potter make me shiver like I'm outside on a Christmas day, all right? Freezing. Oh, my God. I mean, then, Graham Potter, awful. Can you imagine Gareth Southgate? Hey, England manager, get him in. I mean, horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. But that was probably the only way that I could get on board with it, realistically. If the idea is just to sack the manager just to get a bit of a bounce, then... and there's no change at Manchester United, realistically, and, Ineos are just in. They've got 2 seats on the board, and, yeah, they brought in a sporting director, but that's about it. What difference is that going to make? What difference is that going to make? And the players remain as well. What difference is that going to make? The same group of players, or the same core group of players that are constantly here, constantly failing, constantly throwing people under the bus. It's everyone else's fault apart from their own. The lack of accountability, that systemic, toxic culture of, again, just it's always someone else's fault. That's what needs to change, realistically. A couple of super chats here. One from Scythe says, there is a huge attitude and mentality issue in the squad. Until that is fixed, we will never know if Erik ten Hag is the right man for the job or not. And I tend to agree. I have seen, and this is what's so disappointing about it as well. And I suppose it shouldn't be surprising, because in a sense it's not. But just the sheer drop off, and I don't know if you can really pinpoint to what game it was in particular. Maybe it was the 7-0 at Anfield last season. But they're just... felt like a time, isn't there, where some of these players just stopped. And again, that shouldn't be a surprise because they've done it before. They really, truly have. And I felt like after the Chelsea game that they were playing for the manager. But, I mean, anyone can do it on one night, can't they? Anyone can do it on one night in terms of a reaction at home after the worst performance of the season. That's why, I look at tomorrow's game against Bayern Munich, and I still think we'll go out the Champions League. And most likely we'll probably lose that game. But I do think there'll be parts of that game, maybe the start of it, where we actually do okay. Because we do all right in the opening 20 minutes, don't we? And the result was so bad at the weekend that these players have shown that if there's a really bad defeat, they'll come out the next game and they'll be all fighting and they'll be like, see, we reacted, we're back. But then like a week or so later, or against Liverpool, just a few days later, against Liverpool, suddenly it's, it's that all over again. We've seen that so many times, and I just cannot. There are so many different ways this week can go, and I think there are certainly obvious directions this week can go. But even in my brain, I don't think I've properly anticipated how bad it could be, because it's almost like I don't want my mind to go there. You know what I mean? And all eyes of the world are watching anyway, and they certainly will be now. But it's scary, certainly. But let me know your thoughts about what Gary Neville has said there. Do you think that he's right in what he's saying that sacking the manager would be ludicrous, and you've got to fix the bigger problems, the wider problems at United? Do you even think that Ineos can solve those problems? Because that is a point that Gary Neville brings up there, where he says, okay, they have to make those changes, but Ineos and Jim Ratcliffe coming in, can they even do that? Can they even fix those issues? Can they even solve those problems? And I guess it's good on paper, and it's all good me saying it and people reporting it, saying, yeah, Ineos are going to come in and they're going to overhaul this, the football department. But are they actually? We're just kind of taking that for granted, just taking that for what it's worth. The Glazers still got majority control of the club. The Glazers might, in principle, be like, "Oh yeah, you can come and do the football stuff." Or what happens if Man United start doing well and suddenly people start giving it, "Oh yeah, it's because the Glazers are shit again." Do they start going, "Well, actually, no, we're going to get involved in this. We've still got to have say on these things, or we wouldn't do it that way, and it's our club, damn it, still ours. We're still going to have control." Like, are we not worried about the possible game of succession that could play out in the Old Trafford boardroom, and how that could trickle down once again? Like, even that is something that I guess we haven't really even thought about that much. We've just assumed that these changes are going to happen and the Glazers are going to be happy about it. What if they decide to kick up a stink? And I don't know. There's so much worry and so much uncertainty still. And that's why whenever this thing is announced, like, I'm sure there'll be certain things he can and can't say, honestly. But that roadmap to the full ownership has to be laid out there. It just has to, even if it's in complete economics and legalese and Wall Street jargon, that needs to be put out there so fans can go, right, we can hold on to that. And those changes that come in with those people, football people, Jean-Claude Blanc, Paul Mitchell, and others, that all needs to be proof that something is happening properly, that's happening. But until that, Eric Ten Hag, I just think, will be just the latest of many that'll be chewed up and spat out, in all honesty. And because of that, I do think there will be managers that won't be willing to take that risk of coming to Man United, honestly. Man United will always get managers. People will always go there. People will always take the job on. It's Man United at the end of the day. It's a huge honour. But those sort of toppy tier managers that are like up and coming, the best, there'll be people that avoid Manchester United because they'll be like, that club is a mess. Look at the people that have gone there and that have failed. I know you've got to back yourself and believe I'm the guy to change things, but that's what Eric Ten Hag for. Oh yeah, I got told don't come. I mean, he's even said it recently in interviews. People told me and warned me, but I came anyway. All of those people are like, wow, you all laughed at me. That's what they'll be saying. Quite literally, you all laughed at me. I told you not to come. And you went anyway. And look what happened. And it's just, again, I've still not really got over the whole sort of Graham Potter, Gareth Southgate stuff last night. That has actually really worried me. See what people are saying, excuse me, in the chat. Joe Blackman says, Owen, can we do a poll? Players versus manager, please. Well, I can, but I think it'll probably be a pretty easy poll to answer. But I'll put it in there anyway. It's requested. Players or manager? Question mark. And is that in regards to who you back or whose fault it is? Actually, I'll change the question slightly. Well, but then this is the problem with this. So I was going to change the questions to whose fault is it, but it's not necessarily a completely binary option. It's not just like people will be like, wow, it's both. Or they'll go, wow, it's everything. It's the players, it's the manager, but it's also the boardroom. I'll stick to the request. I'll do players versus manager. Players for manager. But I don't. Well, who do you back? Okay, there you go. Who do you back? Players or manager? Because I think if you get into the territory of whose fault is it, people will then say majority players, but manager, or people are like, well, it's majority manager, but also players. Then people will also say, well, actually, a bit like what Gary Neville was saying, yes, everyone takes a shoulder of the blame, but the biggest blame is on the board. And then there'll be people that will just be like everything, all of the above, right? That'll be part of it as well. So it'll kind of be, that's kind of the problems as well. So that poll's in the chat there. What else are people saying in the chat here at the moment? To people saying who you back. What's that light gone out? That's a disgrace. Let's have a look. Actually, this is change of location settings. My light here has just gone out. There you go. Back on. Disgrace cheat. Mr. GTS92 says managers don't spend money. That's what financiers are for. What else we got here? Wizard says the new manager has to convince players to play for him and join United. That reminds me of Mourinho begging Pogba to join because he was the hot thing on social media. And from Glazers in the chat and says the fans' faults. Yeah, the Glazers are always watching, certainly. John James says, what's all this? You can justify this and that nonsense I'm seeing. What's your actual point? That Erik ten Hag is simply rubbish? That's it? Sack him and our problems are gone? Is that what you think? No, that's not what I said. Is that directed to me? Because that's not what I'm saying. It's the opposite of what I've said this morning. And if there's people in the chat, then maybe, but that's certainly not what I'm saying this morning. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's directed at me, John James, to be honest. What else are people saying? Superfly says Erik ten Hag isn't good enough. The buying of his players is poor. His in-game management is poor. His squad selection is poor. He has favourites. He doesn't get on with players. He's crap. The players aren't crap. And I do think that's what's important with all this. I think that, so for me, I think it's kind of crazy that you have to keep saying this because people, like, you can go on record and say it 10 million times, then people haven't heard you say it, and then they'll go, so you want Erik ten Hag out? Is that what you're saying? And you go, no. So obviously, I've been on record several times and said, I don't think we sack the manager. I think the problems are more systemic, bigger than that. I don't genuinely see the long-term benefit in getting rid of the manager. As I said earlier on this morning, the only way I could get behind a managerial change if it was part of a proper radical overhaul, everyone involved. That's kind of my one condition, and it would depend who the person is. So there's a couple of conditions there, but that would be my only thing. But I do think it's also important. Involved in having this discussion about the manager and his future and what have you, that, people that will have had enough of the manager, or they don't think he's this, or they don't think he's that, or they don't like his, as was pointed out there, his in-game management, or they don't like some of the flaws, which there are. I do think it's also important that those people are heard out as well. I do think it is important because I don't think it should be just a one-way argument. I think that I've said this a million times. The art of conversation is completely lost, isn't it? And I know this is ironic, me here by myself telling you this, monologuing for an hour, but I don't have a co-host this morning. But the art of conversation, of hearing someone's opinion and saying, I hear that. but I disagree with it, and this is why. That's totally lost. What I have seen the last couple of weeks, but in particular the last few days and the fallout of the Bournemouth result is whatever side of the fence you sit on, and even if it's in the middle, but whatever side of the fence you sit on, whether you say back the manager or whether you say, I don't think that he's the right guy, get rid of the manager, the way that people jump down each other's throats is incredible, absolutely incredible. You say, I don't think we should get rid of the manager. Everyone's saying you're the problem. You're the problem. This is why Manchester United are failing. Standards in the mud. You're an idiot. What are you for? You're a flip-flop fan. You're a reactionary, blah, blah, blah. You're on the other side, you're the problem. This is why Manchester United are in the mud. This is why we're not united, this, that, and the other. If you back the manager, you're an idiot. If you want to get rid of the manager, you're an idiot. And it's like, it's crazy. And I think there are valid arguments all over the place, but they're opinions. That's what it is. That's what it's all down to at the end of the day. It's crazy. Big up to Josh Media, Graphics Guru Visual Ninja in the chat. Says, is this live? Is this live? Oh, wow. Who knows? Is this live? Has it started yet? Can someone tell me if 34 minutes in, has this started yet? Is this live? Do you know what? I will let you guys into a bit of a secret. Yeah, I'll let you guys into a. This is no one else is watching. Okay, between you and me. Okay, keep the noise down. Keep the noise down. No one can hear. When it says premiere, it's not live. We might have to edit it out. When it says, it's a secret. When there's the countdown before and it says premiering, it's not live. Yeah. I know. Crazy. So that's just a little hint. Well, that's what happens. Yeah. I remember once, and this is genuinely true. I remember once I got I think it was like a direct message or something, or someone added me. Someone got in my mentions on Twitter and said, "Hi Owen, the countdown, I think it was a Flex and KG show. The countdown for the Flex and KG show is too loud. Fix it." When it's not even me. That's YouTube. Can you fix the countdown, please, Owen? I was like, what? What? This is live, though. This is live, and I'll tell you how it's live. The like count is a disgrace. That's why it's live, certainly. Look, we've got nearly 1,000 people watching, and we've only got 202 likes. 202 likes, and we're live. I say we raise that figure. I say we can easily get to 500, since we're only like less than 50 viewers away from 1,000 watching live. And this is another hint, another little secret for you, is that 1, likes are free. That's true. 2, if you click the like button, then YouTube goes, hey, people like this. That's why it's called a like. And then it gets pushed out. It gets shared to the wider YouTube community, and then the UV community expands and it grows. People are scrolling through their YouTube timeline, or they're opening up the app and they see it there. They go, hey, what's this? What's this? United View? I haven't seen this. What's this? And then we grow because of it. Yeah. It's crazy how it works, certainly. Lots of people saying wave if you're live. What, in terms of the stream or biologically? Because we all know that I moved to Android settings physically quite a while ago. I was swapped out. The old guy, the biological Owen, is somewhere like in Star Wars. He's in a Bacta tank trying to recover. Heaven forbid. This is the Android robotic version that took his place. So if you see a couple of glitches here and there, that's why. Yeah, that's a couple of glitches here and there. That's probably why. The facial hair not growing has nothing to do with probably a lack of testosterone and not being able to grow facial hair. It's just because every single day they have to just put in these tiny hair. It's a whole thing. It's a constant whole thing every single time. So Yeah. So, yeah, one day they'll both be on the screen at the same time. As Joe Blackman says, R2D Owen. Yeah. Well, probably more of a sort of C3PO. Josh is more of an R2D2, in all honesty. Just making noises no one can understand. Well, actually, makes noises that very few people can understand, and they have to translate. So I'm definitely the C3PO in that situation. I'm having conversation, then Josh will go like, no, and you go, Josh says, how are you? You know, it's fine. Or you have that conversation. You'll go, no. You go, no, you don't have to say that, Josh. It's okay. It's fine. No. No, you can't say that to their face. No. Forget it. Turn him off. That's what it is. The Undertaker says, this is not live, just like him. The dead man himself, the phenom, the conscience of the WWE says, this is not live. Yeah. It's probably true. We got to move on. Casemiro, a bit of an update on Casemiro. Manchester United released a bit of an update on Casemiro last night. Actually, before I do, I'll check on this poll because I'll get distracted again. So the question was, who do you back? Players versus the manager. 26% of you say players. 74% say the manager. Yes. So that one, we'll keep going. We'll keep going with that one. Yes, Casemiro. So United released this last night talking about Casemiro returning to the grass. Not like that. Says, Casemiro has started training on the pitch as the Brazilian steps up his recovery for Manchester United. The 31-year-old has not featured for the Reds since October, having sustained an ankle injury while on international duty with Brazil. On Sunday, the midfielder was spotted training alone on the grass at Carrington, while his teammates took part in a recovery session. It will be welcome news for Erik ten Hag, who has seen Johnny Evans and Luke Shaw return to fitness in recent weeks. Now, this is where I'm at with Manchester United at the moment, and I don't mean to turn this into, once again, negative and sad and depressing and all that kind of stuff. It's Monday, after all. We don't really need the help. But no disrespect to Casemiro, AI glitch, Casemiro, is that I'm not sure any player at this point, like coming back, being on the grass, I'm not sure any of them like gets me excited, to be honest with you. Just because of that's where we're in at the moment, you know. Like, even if it was Leacher, even if it was Lisandro Martinez coming back, when Lisandro's back on the grass, you go, cool. We're still rubbish. You know what I mean? Even with him, because I feel like we have to get away from that because we've started to do it again. You know, we've done it quite a few times this season. When this player comes back, it'll be fine. When this player gets back in, it'll be fine. When that player gets back in, it'll be okay. When we sign this player, or when this player gets a run of games, when Amrabat starts playing, it'll be fine. When Kobbie Mainoo comes back, it'll be fine. When Luke Shaw comes back, it'll be fine. When Rasmus Højlund gets back from his back injury, it'll be fine. And with Leacher, we know how important he is. I'm not sugarcoating that at all. He is very important. Look how he plays out from the back. Look how he inspires people. His attitude is infectious, and it really inspires the rest of the team. Don't get me wrong, but, I mean, the problems are deep. You know, the problems are very, very deep at Manchester United. And obviously having the best players back and your better players back, in turn, you would hope will make you play better. But at the same time, it's like, you know, Casemiro was in that midfield that was struggling however many weeks ago, a couple of months ago, a couple of weeks ago. You know, that's it. I remember seeing the same thing with Anthony. When he was away for that period and he was back in Brazil dealing with his off-the-field stuff. And then when he was sort of then came back into training, people were like, oh, good, Anthony's back. Yeah, cool. We'll start playing well. And I thought to myself, wait a minute. Like, just like 6 weeks ago, we were all saying how rubbish he was and how he needs to come out of the team. And now we're like, oh, he needs to come back in the team. And then when he came back in, we were like, oh, he probably needs to be dropped again. And only recently has he started playing a bit better. So Casemiro, it's the same. As long as that midfield setup is how it is right now, Casemiro will still struggle in it. Because everyone's struggling in it. Let alone a Casemiro that's 31, you know, and doesn't get around as well as he did last season. You can't. The way that midfield is set up at the moment, with the gaps, with the space to cover, and how easy it is to break through, he will still struggle. He did earlier on this season. It won't be any different. It won't. Unless there is a change in the way we set up and a change in the way that we play, that will not be any different. The tactics involved in that and the setup involved in that has to change. Martinez coming back, it will certainly help us. It will certainly be a positive. You would think he'd probably play alongside Harry Maguire at this point, honestly. And playing out from the back would certainly help us. But still, I don't know, I'm just so downtrodden with our performances recently and the amount of chances that we're conceding. And I'm not saying Casemiro doesn't make us better or anything like that. And I'm not saying Casemiro's washed and he's rubbish, but we have seen him struggle in this midfield setup this season. So I think it's kind of naive to assume that he's going to come back and he's not going to have the same struggling issues that he struggled with earlier on. That is just what's going to happen unless there are some tactical changes. But it's good that it's back, that he's coming back. As for when he's going to be back, again, he was training by himself, so his actual return date is... Ten Hag said he doesn't expect to have him before Christmas. I'll be probably looking at, the new year? Maybe those early games in January, something like that. Maybe the FA Cup against Wigan. If not that, I think the game after that is is it Spurs at home, I think? It's on the 14th of January, something like that, I think. So... probably not for a while, certainly. But I felt bad for him in terms of the reaction to his return because they put it out, I think it was at 7:30 or 7:45 this news came out. And the day after you lose 3-0 at home to Bournemouth, and it could have been 4 or 5 or maybe even 6. But people don't care. It definitely felt like, here's a bit of positive news, and people are like, don't even try it. Man United, don't. Let's not even do that. Joe Blackwood says, wasn't Casemiro our top goal scorer at one point? He was, and people are going to be very against me doing this comparison because you should never compare Casemiro to Scott McTominay. But it was kind of similar situation where people were going, yes, he's a top goal scorer, but they're not playing very well. It was the same. There was the same narrative was going around with that. Now, granted, you would say Casemiro offers more than Scott McTominay does. Because Scott McTominay really only offers the goals. I said last night that Scott McTominay is Marouane Fellaini, honestly. But he was, but that still didn't skirt him of the criticism. That was the argument. That was the argument people were having about Casemiro earlier on this season, right? Which was, yes, he's top goal scorer, but he's apart from the goals, what is he doing? Because then they were getting out the stats. Oh, he's not covering this ground, or he's not doing this, he's not doing that. But then people were saying, maybe he's not being helped in midfield. He's playing by himself essentially. He's doesn't really have a midfield partner. The gaps are too big. He's not getting any protection. He can't. That's why I say those conversations, that debate will happen when he's back again, unless tactically something changes in the midfield. That it has to, because anyone will struggle in that midfield. Because look how many different partnerships we've tried. A lot of the time due to injuries and absences and what have you. But look at the amount of different people that have played in that midfield this season. Casemiro, Mason Mount, McTominay, Eriksen, Kobbie Mainoo, Amrabat. There's 6 midfielders that have played in a variety of different partnerships, and it's been the same issues regardless. Now, you can maybe say, well, they haven't had a lot of time together. They can't really form a partnership, but it is kind of bigger than that, isn't it? It is kind of bigger. It's bigger. It's more tactical. It's that setup isn't working. It's not. For a while there, they had, Casemiro and Eriksen again. I worry with Casemiro and an Amrabat, would that even work? Are you worried a bit about mobility and the ability to cover distance in that midfield? How do you get Kobbie Mainoo in there? There needs to be a better system, a better midfield system in there. There has to be. And Erik ten Hag insists it's not, man-to-man, even though it looks like it's zonal. Whatever it is, it's not working, certainly. Joe Blackman says, I want to see Casemiro, Mainoo, and Bruno. Well, I think one person he's definitely not going to be playing on Sunday is Bruno Fernandes. And How does everybody still feel about that, the Bruno stuff, a couple of days removed? Because the more I think about it, because I was thinking about today in the press conference and all that kind of stuff, I was thinking about who would likely be sitting by Erik ten Hag in the press conference. And as of I still don't think United have announced who's going to be there. If they have, you can let me know. But I was thinking of who was going to sit alongside the Man United manager today, because they usually have a player with the manager. And after a result like the weekend, Bournemouth 3-0 at home, should have been more. They had the ball in net 5 times. We had it in the net 0 times. I was thinking that you should have the captain sitting alongside the manager to face the brunt of the media, to face the brunt of the press and all of those negative questions that are coming. And I don't think it will be. I don't think it will be Bruno Fernandes. My prediction was that actually it would be Harry Maguire to sit by Erik ten Hag today. I think it would be fairly calculated, because if Maguire's in the room, then a lot of the questions have to be sort of about Maguire's turnaround. He just won Player of the Month in the Premier League. Through Manchester United's trials and tribulations over the last couple of months, he's been our best player. And that says a lot from where he was at the beginning of the season and towards the end of last season. But in just steering it back to Bruno, I still just can't really wrap my head around it. You're 3-0 down, game over. Going into the game, pick up a book and you miss the biggest game of the season away from home, and you get booked, not for a tackle, not for something that could possibly be justified. I don't think anything could at that point, but for dissent. It's really the sort of lowest of the low reason, isn't it? It's the stick that everyone beats Bruno with, is the petulance, and it's the height of petulance. There is no need. It doesn't do anything. I mean, I can get, swearing at a referee or whatever if they're making bad calls, bad decisions. The referee had nothing to do with that game. The referee and VAR was the reason we didn't lose by more. And I can almost get sometimes playing a bit of a game with the referee, getting onto him because you might get a decision later on. Game's over. It's done. There was just completely no need. And because of that, he misses a massive game when we all know our backs are going to be against the wall anyway. And last season he played there. He was the captain that day and he got roundly criticised. Some of it was justified, some of it wasn't. And now he's not even going to be there. That's just not good enough. And that is inexcusable. And I hope he apologised to his teammates. And I don't think he's yet to apologise to the fans, has he? But if I was him, I'd apologise to the fans for not being available on his own accord. You're not available on your own accord for the game against Liverpool at Anfield after your worst performance and worst result of the season. That's not captain material, that is not. And I've backed Bruno and I was for him to become the captain and all that kind of stuff, but that just isn't what you do. Roy Keane missed big games, but he missed them because they were finals, first of all. And also he missed them because in the semi-final he was tremendous and he picked up yellow cards on the way to Manchester United winning. Yeah. And he put in captain's performances. It's not even comparable. So I think that's, I thought it was disgraceful. There's no other way to dress that up. There isn't. You can't, it's indefendable. There is no angle that you can approach that to be like, oh, wow, this. No, there's not. And I think he really let his teammates down. I think he let the fans down with that. It was not good enough, certainly. What else are people saying in the chat here at the moment? Lilio says, Owen, is there any news on Eriksen or Mount? Mount was back training, according to Ten Hag, last week, whenever it was. So you never know, he might be available. Find out more today. Eriksen, he was more longer term, I think. Unless I'm mistaken, because out of the two, because remember, he went down the same time as Højlund, and the Højlund one wasn't as bad, but the Eriksen one was, so I don't know if there's any time frame or anything like that. So yeah, they're not going to be around anytime soon. John James says, we have too many experienced players who don't take on a leadership role when one isn't performing. If Bruno is crap, no one takes the mantle. Well, yes and no, because I do agree with sort of the sentiment of what you're saying. So it's funny, isn't it? Because we went from a stage with Harry Maguire being the captain, and a lot of people said at the time, oh, the reason that, Maguire... Well, here we go. We've got an Ornstein exclusive, folks. We've got an Ornstein exclusive regarding one Manchester United. I can read this out right now. And it regards Anthony Martial. Now, David Ornstein has just tweeted in the last couple of minutes, Manchester United do not intend to activate the option to extend Anthony Martial's contract when it expires at the end of the season. Martial signed a new 5-year deal in 2019, which included a clause enabling United to prolong his stay by 12 months until June 2025. But as things stand, the Old Trafford hierarchy are expected to let the 28-year-old forward leave as a free agent next summer unless suitable offers from suitors arrive in January. If United decline to take up Martial's option, the forthcoming transfer window would present the last chance for them to generate a fee for him. And then it carries on. But the point being is Anthony Martial, according to David Ornstein, which is, really the tippy-top tier source, isn't it, when it comes to all that kind of stuff, they're not going to extend his contract or actually activate that clause, which, to be fair, I saw a really weird sort of narrative surrounding that coming out of the embargoed part of the press conference on Friday, because he was actually asked by Samuel Luckhurst. He was asked by Samuel Luckhurst when it comes to contracts. He said, look, there's quite a few players' contracts coming up. This time last year, you did a lot of, the contracting extensions and all that kind of stuff. Do you intend on doing that this time? And he said that, we're in discussions. And people, this is where you've got to have sort of media literacy and you've got to have media comprehension, because what he said there is we're in talks, we're in discussions about it. If we have anything to say, we'll let you know. And people took that as, Man United are going to extend Anthony Martial's contract. And I thought at the time, he never said that. That's not what he said at all. He said we're in talks. And people, this is what he said with the media, they twisted and just manipulated stuff. And they said Manchester United are in talks to extend Anthony Martial's contract. And you went, what? What are you talking about? No, he didn't. Yes, there are some of them that clearly they're going to activate. I think Wan-Bissaka's one of them. But most people probably assume Martial is going to be gone at the end of the season. He's on $250K a week and he hasn't played 90 minutes in 3 years. 3 years he hasn't played 90 minutes. And I've brought that up a couple of times and people go, and why are you bringing that up? Because that's a ridiculous stat. That is insane. That's an insane number. 3 years he hasn't picked up $250K a week. And what I don't understand is, you get this talk about people going, get rid of the dead wood. We've got to just scrap the players, get rid of them. And you go, right, Anthony Martial, got to go. Well, he's not given a fair shake of the whip. And he can score goals. No, you've got a big cut throat. Go. He's done. It's done. It's over. It hasn't worked out for him. When you've got an opportunity to cut bait, you've got to do it. You've got to do it. Now, with certain things that hasn't worked out, sure, injuries have plagued him and he was played out all over the place and he got played under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and that's fine, but that doesn't change where we're at. And I think I don't get that kind of pushback sometimes when you talk about that. Get rid of him. Wow, this. It was the same with like Pogba. It was the same with Lingard. It was the same with Martial. Wow, no, it's done. It's done. Same with people like Mata, their contract's coming up. I tell you what, no, it's done. It's done. It's over. We are not going to grow. We are not going to get better as a football club. We are not going to fix some of the big problems. Phil Jones and other. We're not going to fix those problems unless they're gone, unless they're off the wage bill. And you bring that wage bill down, and the person that you do bring in, you don't put on a ridiculous amount of wage, and they're available for the whole time. It's wild. And that's why I think some people maybe missed the point. At the weekend, I was talking about Martial and I didn't think he'd played particularly well. And people were like, no, he played really well. But it's like the manager problem that I'm talking about this morning. You take a step back and the issue shouldn't necessarily be, Martial, why is he playing today? The issue more should be, why is he still here? Why is he at the club? The fact that Erik ten Hag has to pick Anthony Martial, or Martial as an option, the only other striking option that Erik ten Hag has at the club, that's a problem. That's a massive issue. Erik ten Hag tried him last season. He picked him and he backed him as a striker. He figured that one out very quickly. We had to get in Wout Weghorst on loan to be available for the rest of the season because Martial wasn't. And you could say, well, that's not, Martial's fault. That's his body and this is this, that and the other. But it's the situation. It's the situation in general. That situation of having Anthony Martial still on the books on 250k a week, that is an encapsulation of Manchester United's problem. Poor planning, poor recruitment, poor execution, and an inability to get players to leave. And it's got to the stage now where, yeah, it's got to be a free transfer. Arsenal did that as well. They had to bite the bullet, get rid of them, free transfer. We effed up, but we've got to fix it. So, correct decision. I don't think it's massively surprising. I was kind of always under the assumption that was always going to happen anyway. I mean, you're not going to, just think of it from a financial point of view. You're not going to trigger the option on a guy that's on 250k a week when you know you're not getting value for money. I know David Ornstein's there talking about, January or anything like that. Martial's not going anywhere in January. No club in their right mind is going to pay really any money for Martial, who's got 6 months left on his contract, and he's on 250k a week. Anthony Martial also knows he's not going to get that amount of money from anywhere else, is he? He's no, wherever his next club is, unless it's in Saudi, which it might be, but unless he's not getting 250k a week anywhere else, is he? He's not. And he'd probably be thinking, right, I've got to get that money for 6 months because otherwise, everything else is going to be a downgrade. So, yeah, I think that it's the right move, certainly for United, not a surprising one. And it needs to be more of the same, in all honesty. But again, I'm not totally surprised. But there you go. How many likes are we currently on as we wrap things up here at the moment? We're currently at 307 likes. We've still got nearly 1,000 people watching, so if you haven't already, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe as well, bottom right hand corner. A reminder, coming up later today, we are going to have the press conference. Flex is going to be there at Carrington to hopefully ask Erik ten Hag a couple of questions regarding whatever you want to hear about, basically. So that press conference is at midday, it's at 12 o'clock. So I'm going to be live around sort of probably 1 o'clock-ish, hopefully with some clips as well. There's going to be all of the preview ahead of tomorrow too. So there's going to be a preview coming from Carrington as well. So if you haven't already, subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Click that notification bell. You'll be notified when we do go live or when a new video is uploaded. Have a good day, and I will speak with you again very, very soon. I'm out of here. Peace.